America Orange with Burlington County Parks, and we're here with another installment of Point of Origin, the artwork of Hugh Campbell with Art Smith. We're back from the beach, and the weather around here is turning colder. For artists, that means a whole new palette of colors. And Hugh Campbell was actually renowned for his use of colors. But autumn meant more than just color for Hugh. I'll read you something from his book, Not Vigorously to Be Heard. And Hugh writes, "Coming east on Shreve Street this fall afternoon, sunlight and blue sky. What marvel is it that perceives this? Something clear, uncontaminated within me, unclouded by smoke, grime, rain, or distracting anxieties. All I see is the beautiful street, clearest of the clear, entirely filling the pure, indescribable void within me. The humble street right now, at this moment, is my whole life." So we're going to go down on Shreve Street, we're going to meet Art Smith, and we're going to look at some colorful paintings from Hugh Campbell, and we'll also take a look at his beloved sandpit and what it looks like today.
Thanks, Eric. Here we are, just off of Shreve Street. Shreve Street is in front of me, the Rancocas Creek is behind me, and here we are in the woods that Hugh Campbell loved to paint. This was an area that Hugh Campbell really patrolled, looking for images, and he would come back to this area often and paint landscapes. And he would paint his different landscapes in different seasons, and as Eric mentioned, he loved the fall. One of the interesting things looking at Hugh Campbell's work is we're not always sure when he painted it or where he painted it. These two paintings that we're going to look at today really reflect the later work of Hugh Campbell. This painting over here is dated 1965, and this painting really feels like in the same time period as that. Both of these paintings are on masonite board, and both of them make use of an expansive palette of colors and a great quantity of paint that he's applied to these scenes. I'm going to walk over here and look at this one, and in this painting it's almost like the area we're at right now. He's got his grasses and his kind of swampy area. That's where I'm standing now. In this painting he has applied his colors with a brush, and he has stroked his skies, laid his trees on top of that sky with his brush, creating in some areas a thick amount of paint. His use of his colors, he's got some purples in here, reds, alizarin crimson, there are oranges and yellows, some ultramarine blues, some really nice bright greens, some hooker greens in here, and he's playing off some pinks and browns down here in the grasses, and then he's got his kind of swampy, moist, wet foreground. It's an interesting painting because of its use of color and how dramatic he's beginning to become. His early paintings don't reflect this kind of use of color as much, and especially in this painting over here, which is again another fall scene, and he has completely gone wild with his colors. He's got blues in these trees, he's got his greens and yellows, and he's making really different shades of greens down here. To look at this painting from a distance, it really is coherent and cohesive, but coming up close, you really can see the amount of work that he's put into stroking in these different dabs of paint to create an image. Another interesting thing about this painting is that in that painting, his sky is, he's laid blue down and he's moved his whites around to create some different values of the sky. Here, he's really done a blending transition that's very, very thin. I mean, you can see the particle board really through this application of paint, whereas down in here, he's really laid it on so thick you can't see the particle board. On these paintings, it seems like he has painted on the back of the masonite, which is unusual because it's got more texture to it, and most painters paint on the front side. So these are really two really good examples of later work of Hugh Campbell. You can see his work progressing as we've looked at these paintings over time. These tend to be some of his strongest pieces, both in his use of color, as Eric mentioned, in his composition, and him capturing that moment of being out there in the autumn woods. For our third piece today of the work of Hugh Campbell, we're looking at this painting that has some really interesting and unique features about it. As we mentioned in the last paintings that we looked at, this is a painting, an oil painting on masonite, and again, he's painted on the back side of the masonite. But what's really interesting about this painting is that on the back side of this painting, he has given us more details than we've seen in a lot of the work that he's done. This says, painted about October 30th, 1968, early moonrise over Shoup's Field near Shreve Street, Mount Holly, New Jersey, and it's signed Hugh Campbell. We are on, literally, Shreve Street right now. It's the middle of October. So in terms of point of origin, we're pretty close to exactly the area that Hugh Campbell may have painted. At the time, there were a lot of fields off of Shreve Street, and to my left was an area called the Sand Pits, which was really a source for glass sand that was sent to Philadelphia for glass works, cement that was used locally for concrete, and it was an area that Hugh Campbell loved to paint. And so we're right in Hugh Campbell's wheelhouse and zone right here where we are. Again, if you look at this painting, one of the things that's interesting is this has got a background of gradation like one of the last paintings that we looked at. And again, it makes use of this heavy-duty, laid-on paint of trees, ground, grasses, background, and because it's a moonrise, he's put a very small dab of off-yellow paint to designate the moon and to create a painting that appears to me, anyway, to be dusk, that the moon is up, light is coming down, and here we are. And it's Hugh Campbell, again, hitting a later work that has some interesting details that we didn't see so much in his earlier work, but is very consistent with the last two paintings we looked at. One interesting thing to note is that this area, especially the sand fields over here, when it transitioned into a dump, which it did, I think, in the 70s and 80s, it really bothered Hugh Campbell. He wanted to preserve those sand pits, and he wrote letters to the mayor and was politically involved in trying to stop that transition. Like the other two paintings we looked at, he is really, really playing with some bright colors that are coming out of his vision, his imagination, to lay on this canvas to represent in an impressionistic way a scene, a location. And this was really Hugh Campbell at his best. Some very thin line work in here, brush work to designate these young trees, and then a lot of impasto laid on paint of greens and browns and oranges and yellows to create these fall colors of leaves in transition. The blue background kind of really value-wise jumps up against this lighter, light teal, kind of off orange background that he's painted. Again, in a very washed out style here, much thicker laid on paint in front. And we've seen him really stroke across this bottom with his brush. And we're going to assume it's his brush because you can see paint bristle lines in it, although he may have used some other kind of sticks or palette knives to create that.
Thanks, Art. Shreve Street certainly has seen a number of changes over the years. So join us next time when we'll be looking at some winter scenes and we'll be home for the holidays.